Hey everyone, how you doing? I know this is a tough slot because we just had lunch, so I'll make my best to keep you awake, but I don't mind if you fall asleep. So, unraveling the black box, we often treat authentication as a black box, right? We just install Devise, generate a user model, and move on. But few of us wonder why it works the way it does. And with Rails 8, authentication has officially entered the framework, and this opens up not only new capabilities, but as our good Uncle Ben told Spider-Man, also new responsibilities. So today I'll walk you through where this feature came from, how to use it, and what it means for modern authentication flows, such as passwordless and auth. So I'm Alicia Rojas. I'm a software engineer at Telos Labs for almost 4 years. I'm also a music composer. I was born in Chile, and I'm based in Mexico City. You can scan that thing for my LinkedIn. Happy to connect with all of you. So the agenda for today, I'm going to start with a bit of history. I want to understand where authentication in Rails comes from, where its precedents, what the Rails 8 generator gives us, and then I'm going to walk you through some modern authentication flows, and finally some takeaways and what's next with this important part of our applications. So first, a bit of history. Sorry, I'm not going to talk about aliens today. It's a great subject, by the way, my boss's favorite. So why do we authenticate? Authentication didn't start with Rails. It didn't even start with the modern web. It began as a basic need of knowing who are you, and are you allowed to see this? So in the early days of HTTP, the first form of web authentication was basic auth, so just a username and a password encoded in the headers. We had no sessions, no storage of user data, so it was kind of an anonymous, stateless web. But as web apps grew more complex, so did the need for identity and permissions and state. So we needed more than just knowing who someone was. We needed to control what they could do. And that's the main difference between authentication and authorization. Some people kind of confuse these two terms. They're different. So authentication is proving your identity. Who are you? And authorization has to do with what you are allowed to do once you are authenticated. So they're deeply connected because you cannot enforce permissions without first enforcing verifying identity. But they're distinct layers. So there's a couple of examples of gems that handle both features. So modern web apps often need both authentication and authorization to have flexibility and security. So I'm going to give a real-life example. I had to authenticate myself when I came to this country. I had to prove my identity with my passport, and then I was authorized to be here, right? So authorization and the things I can and cannot do in this country has to do with my identity, with who I am. So back in the early days, talking about history a little bit, Rails devs implemented sessions manually. So we would set cookies, well, not we, but our ancestors. They would set cookies, they would handle logic, login logic, validations, all by hand. So it was very useful. It was also useful for learning, but it was a bit hard to scale and reuse. So in 2008, authLogic came to solve this problem. It was a clean gem that you could just drop in, similar to what Devise does. It didn't require complicated engines or magic. You would just add a model, include a module, and just go. So it offered reasonable flexibility, but left a lot up to you. October 2009 brings the wonderful Devise, which was built on top of WebAuthn. If you ever had to monkey patch or fix a bug in Devise, you know what WebAuthn is. Otherwise, it's just magic behind the screen. And it packaged everything. It packaged views, controllers, models for a full feature authentication. So it was of a great convenience, but it often became a black box. We would stand on the shoulders of this giant and just let it handle everything for us. So years went by, and auth and SSO started to go mainstream. As mobile and social grew, this became a standard, so we had Facebook, Twitter, Google, all adopting this new standard. So simple password-based authentication wasn't enough anymore. We needed tokens, third-party APIs, SSO, so complexity grew. And over a decade later, we have Rails finally shipping with authentication generation in its 8th version. So this gives you a working login flow out of the box while still letting you customize and extend and understand the full stack. So I want to pause here a little bit because Devise is in my heart combo. Yeah, great joke. So this thing brings not only authentication, but also registration. It was released in 2009, and it was really a game changer. It was very modular, so it's nice how you can turn on and off different features like confirm address, invitations, remembering sessions, expiration. And it was officially introduced in Rails Summit Latin America 2009. And yeah, I went to the source code and see who were the first committers and early contributors. So thanks to these two lovely characters here. And yeah, why framework level authentication now? So in the recent years, the need for more flexible authentication flows, like the ones I'm going to introduce later, like passwordless and auth, made developers ask, why is something so critical still in an external concern? Why is it treated like a black box? So after some experimentation, Rails 8 shipped with its first built-in authentication generator, which is very simple by design, but it's highly extensible. And it really has this mindset shift built in of digging into things and stop like letting others handle it for you. So let's dig in it. Rails 8 authentication generator. So as any other generator, you just type Rails generate authentication, and then you name the model, which is commonly user. And this will scaffold a simple yet readable authentication system for this common model. So it will include everything you need to log in and reset a password, but it will assume that you will want to customize and extend this flow. It has an authentication concern that is included in the application controller, but it doesn't include a user's controller because it's not a registration generator. And of course, minimal styles and views that you for sure want to customize. This is how the user model looks like after you run this generator. So it brings this secure password helper that will give you a password hashing, authentication logic, and validation with Bcrypt behind the scenes, a normalization of the email, so your database will look neat, and an association with sessions, which is one of the other models this generator includes. This is the sessions controller. Again, really little magic here. It's very understandable login flow. We don't have weird callbacks or filters, just a conditional redirect, a conditional and a redirect. This is the authentication concern. So as I mentioned, this is included in the application controller, and it centralizes key helpers like allow an authentication access, which is the new skip before action that we were used to with Devise, and a before action for protected pages. So everything is really customizable. You can override whatever you want. It's very transparent. It includes a password reset flow because we've all been there. So you get this password out of the box, and you can easily replace it with tokens or magic links or any other kind of passwordless flow. It includes a controller, a mailer, and the ERB views, very ugly by default, but you can, again, customize them. As I said before, it doesn't include a sign-up view, but you can easily generate it with this controller generator. So this will scaffold the controller and the views for you. So very easy to set up. No magic again. And this is how the routes look like after running the generator. Sessions, users, and passwords, all out of the box. So to summarize, why this is great, it's learnable code. It's not hidden. It's just there, very transparent. You don't have magic routes or engines. Everything is plain Rails, the good old MVC pattern. So it's very easy to trace. You can also extend it for another flows, as I will show in a bit. And it encourages the best practices because we use the RESTful pattern concerns. It is very testable. So it is a great default. It is a good starting point for just get things working quickly. So let's talk about some modern use cases because security is getting tougher and tougher. I'm going to talk about passwordless. So why are passwords something we want to get rid of? So the first thing is a lot of people reuse their passwords. So raise your hand if you have reused a password in the past 6 months, let's say. Okay, so we're developers and we'll still do it. So imagine the rest of the world. This is really bad because one compromised password means many compromised passwords, which takes us to the second reason. People are lazy and have bad memory, so they will choose weak passwords because they're easier to remember. And still, they will forget them. So I've been there. And yeah, basically, we have enough reasons to want a passwordless authentication flow. So I found this gem. It's called No Password. It's very simple and minimal. You can scan the code. I'm not a contributor of it, just used it. It works really smoothly with the authentication generator. And it allows you to implement a temporary secure login code initiated from people's browsers. So they can log in via email or SMS, QR codes, OAuth, or any other side channel. And it also comes with a really neat login with email flow, so you can start using it right away in your authentication, in your Rails application. So usage, 3 simple steps. You add it to your gem file, you run that generator, it will create a migration that I will show you, and then you run the migration and you're good to go. There's really, it's a very simple setup. You can, of course, customize it as you want. So this is the migration, and the way this works is that if the email address the user provides is well-formed, Rails will generate a random 6-digit number and a salt. So this salt is a string that is appended to the email before hashing it to make it more secure. And this 6-digit number is emailed to the end user. This salt, however, is persisted in the browser. And they can use the code to log into the application. Rails encrypts the email via no password secret, which is this table. And the combination of the code, the salt, provided by the user is what it's needed to unlock the secret. So this is how my very shitty app works with this flow. So you just provide an email, you get a login code in your email, you copy and paste it, and you're good to go. So, oh, wait, this is taking longer than I expected. Okay, so, yay, we're logged in. Cool. So how is this even safe? You might be wondering, how does this method, for example, mitigate brute force attacks? So as our local figure teaches us, it's not about how hard you hit, it's about how much you can take. So this translates into a number of remaining attempts. So that's the first layer of security this thing adds. This remaining attempt is decremented every time the user enters a code, and when it gets to 0, the secret is destroyed, and the user has to generate a new one, request a new one. And yeah, by default, this is 3 attempts, but you can override that if you want. The second interesting thing I found about this gem is that it hides the salt in the browser the user is using for authenticating. So this salt is embedded into the form payload that it's posted back to the server along with the code. And this means that the attacker would have to somehow get this salt in addition to the code. So if somehow this attacker managed to intercept the code in the email, it will also have to somehow see the browser of the user to be able to unlock the code. So that's kind of extra hard. So the third layer of security this thing has is an expiration. So by default, no password gives 5 minutes to enter the code. After that, it is destroyed. Again, you can override this thing very easily. And yeah, that's with passwordless. So let's move on to this second login flow, which is SSO and OAuth. So if you're wondering what's the difference, I didn't know it quite well, so I had to investigate. So SSO stands for single sign-on, and it's an authentication method. So it means you can log in once with an identity provider, such as Google or Okta, Meta, whatever, and then you can access multiple apps without re-entering credentials. So it's like you log in to Google, Gmail, and then you can access YouTube, Drive, anything. Whereas OAuth is an open standard for authorization. So it grants third-party applications access to your resources, like your data, your email, your calendar, whatever you want to share, without sharing your password. So yeah, SSO is an authentication method, and OAuth it's an authorization protocol. And they usually come together. OAuth is often used as a part of an SSO system, but the two are not the same. So why do we want this in our application? It's a very fast and secure sign up and login for your user. It really reduces that friction, users having to enter their data and creating a new password. It inherits Google security because you're basically using their system, their 2FA, their device monitoring, etc. So you don't have to worry about that yourself. It also lowers your liability of having to store passwords because you don't. And you can access this verified profile data. So you trust this identity provider, and then you trust the data they are provide to you. So how to do this? You can do this with the same no password gem that I just showed. So the first thing is that you set up a OAuth client in Google Developer Console. Very easy. Then you're given a client ID and a secret ID. And then you have to set up your routes. I did it with localhost for developing this demo app. You have to set up the redirect URL. And then you have to make sure that is the same route you are actually implementing in your app. So that's the second step. You set up your routes. And the third step is to create a controller. So this is in the documentation of the gem. I literally just copied and pasted it. Did really little override on this. And yeah, you get a working login with Google. And this was really cool because I had 2FA implemented in my account, and I got 2FA with this shitty app without doing anything. So that was really good. So let's go to the third authentication flow, which is role-based. And if you are paying attention, you will know that role-based is not an authentication method. It has to do with authorization. So I'm not going to talk about it because I only have 5 minutes left, and this talk is about authentication. So wrapping up, Some key takeaways. Rails 8 gives us a transparent, editable authentication system, so we have no more black boxes anymore. Everything is very transparent. Even with this gem, everything is just there. Passwordless and authentication are no longer nice to have, and especially SSO and OAuth. I, as a user, personally expect this. I use it a lot, especially for work. I don't have to create 100 passwords for every API or every integration I use, every tool. So that's really cool. And authentication is not a backend only problem anymore. It really intersects with UX, with product, with security. So building your own flow can be simple and secure if you understand the parts and you really want to dig in. So what's next for authentication? We talked about passwordless. We also have Passkeys and WebAuthn, and its adoption is growing and is going more and more mainstream. SSO, especially in enterprise context and business-to-business SaaS. We have weirder and weirder authentication systems. We used to think of authentication as something like very binary, like you are authenticated or not. But nowadays, it's shifting towards a more like a spectrum thing. So we have, for example, biometric signals and behavioral signals that contribute to this weirder concept of authentication. So, for example, behavioral signals refers to using subtle passive patterns in how someone interacts with a device or with your application. So things like, for example, keystroke behavior, like how fast you type or how often you make mistakes, where are you logging from, how you navigate, like how fast or slow you scroll your page. All these subtle signals are stored in the background. And then machine learning models are used to build a behavioral profile of your session. So if a session deviates from this profile, it can trigger re-authentication, for example, or send a risk score. So I experienced this myself not long ago. I was doing some tests, and I logged into another phone, an iPhone, which is very weird for my behavioral session pattern. And then I was logged out from my personal phone. And I was asked to enter 2FA, which had not happened in a long time. And the reason why I know it had not happened is because the 2FA code was sent to my Chilean number that I haven't used in like 3 years. So I realized I was not asked 2FA in this whole time. But this behavioral change triggered this signal in Google somehow. So, well, to summarize, we have modern authentication that isn't just about login forms anymore. It's just about flexibility, trust, giving users more control. And Rails is giving us the foundation to build this that well. So this authentication generator gives us a fresh start. It's not just a tool, but as I mentioned earlier, it's a mindset shift. So we can stop treating authentication like a black box and start treating it like a critical piece of our apps. I forgot to mention that last point. And yeah, because of these other login flows, we have more and more client-side responsibility. So we have more JavaScript and web APIs influencing our authentication flows. So that was my talk. Here's an image of a watermelon guarding a gate. Thank you very much.